Let's go with the fourth crisis that we mentioned yesterday. We spoke about a pathological crisis, which is the burnout. That means that it is a moment of challenge, that not all of them should pass through the burnout, because it means that something has been wrong. Last year, I had an experience that helped me to understand why burnout can appear and how you can manage it by yourself. It wasn't anything related to job, it was related to bicycle. I like riding the bicycle in the weekends. Usually I do about 3 hours more or less of road bicycle, and one day after breakfast, it was a day of holidays in the university, so after breakfast I said, well, it is a nice day, let us go and do a ride, even if I had not scheduled it. So I decided to go and to do this route, 78 kilometers. That will be about 2 hours and a half or 3 hours for me. And as I was more or less beginning, about half an hour, I said, well, I feel that I am strong, the day is nice, I have time, so why don't I do, instead of this ride of 78 kilometers, let us do this other one, which is much more beautiful, 94 kilometers around the lake of Bracciano. And then, at a certain point, I was more or less in the middle of the ride. I said, I think something is wrong with the bicycle. Perhaps one of the wheels has been damaged because it is too hard for me to ride it. But after I continued to ride, and I said, no, something is wrong, not with the bicycle, but something is wrong with me. I was exhausted. I cannot ride fluently, and so then I began thinking something has been wrong, because I don't have the usual strength. This ride is long, but I had done it several times. So I checked myself. It was not the first time that it happened to me, because it is something frequent in sports that require you long-term strength. That you can get exhausted if you have not calculated well the balance between the strength that you have at the moment and the demand that you are asking yourself. So I asked myself, what is the problem? What has been the problem with me? Why I am exhausted? And I saw that I had lacked little training, because I had not ridden the bicycle for the last 2-3 weeks because of different reasons. So that's why I was willing to ride, but you cannot, if you have not trained, you cannot go to a long ride. Then the sleep, I had not slept well that night, so I was not 100%. And then the breakfast. I had thought that after breakfast I decided to ride the bike. So I took the usual breakfast when I'm going to spend the morning in my office working in front of the computer. So after approximately an hour, I have consumed all the energy that I had eaten. And I was exhausted. And I thought, it is perhaps something similar that happens to a person who falls into burnout. He has demanded himself more than he can do now with his strength, with the training, with the rest that he has, and with the food, both material, physical, and spiritual that he has eaten. So what did I do? What did I do? One of the things that you learn in the bicycle, that is a school of life, is that you can't rest as you are riding the bike. It is a great discovery that also people who do long running know that you can manage your rhythm and you can retake your strength without stopping. Furthermore, if you stop, it will be much difficult for you to retake. So it is a kind of technique. So just slow down. And then, as part of the problem was that I didn't have enough energy, go to the first bar that you are going to find and take some energetic bars so as to retake the strength. And then go back to the right. Obviously, I didn't enjoy so much the nice day. I did more effort and I arrived very tired at home. But I arrived. So perhaps people who fall into a burnout have this kind of problem. What is burnout? Let us go a step backward and let us speak about what is called the neurotic symptoms. In the old ages, now it is not, it is a little outdated, but psychiatric illnesses were divided into neurotic illnesses, that is what we are going to study here, psychotic illnesses, that are the schizophrenia or the bipolar disorder, and personality disorders. So neurotic symptoms, that is what we are going to speak today, are basically anxiety and depression. Those are the most frequent symptoms that we find in psychiatry. When I was working in the hospital, people used to tell me, so you are a psychiatrist, you are treating crazy people. And I said, no. 80%, 90% of my patients are normal patients like you that have anxiety or depression. Obviously, we have also people who have other problems, but most of the people who treat psychiatrists are ordinary people who are overwhelmed by their problems. These symptoms are qualitatively normal, which means that everybody knows them and have experienced something similar to it. All of us have suffered some kind of anxiety, some kind of low mood. The problem when they are natural, they usually have a reactive nature. You are anxious because you have some challenge in front of you. You have an exam, you have a ceremony with a bishop, you have to finish some job. They become pathologic when there is a disproportion between the cause that has made appear those symptoms and the intensity. It is normal to be anxious before exam, but when you become so anxious that you cannot focus, that you cannot study, that you cannot sleep, it means that anxiety has gone too far. And so it is not a normal reactive anxiety. It is normal that you are sad when something that you love has died. But if you are closed into your house and you don't like to be with anyone, and you don't eat and you don't sleep, it is too much, so we can call it pathologic. And also the persistence. It is normal to avoid to be with people when you have lost a person that you love, but if it lasts for more than 1 month, 2 months, so it is also pathological. So an example is when somebody has died. Other one is it is normal to be a little afraid or prudent in front of dogs, but not in front of such a small dog as we're seeing in this slide. So anxiety and depression are very frequent. Statistics say that approximately 25% of general population will suffer anxiety, not the normal anxiety, but the pathological anxiety that should be treated by a professional at a certain point of their lives. It means that if here we are 12 people, 3 of us statistically might need a help. And depression is about 15% of the general population. We can define depression as universal basic emotion. If you remember the, the philosophy, mainly the Aristotelical Thomist philosophy, they said that when they study the passions, they explain depression as a passion that you experience when you have a bad situation present, on which you cannot go out, you cannot overcome it. Then you are depressed, you stop and you are sad, and so it means that there is something, the evil that cannot be avoided, but there is a kind of judgment that you do, even if it is not conscious, on the situation, and you say, this is a bad thing and I cannot avoid it. So there can be what some psychologists call the learned helplessness. This one concept that Martin Seligman, who is one of the founders of positivist psychology, discovered doing an experiment with rats. He founded that if a rat was in a experiment laboratory and you put her a big charge of electricity, obviously what the rat is moving. But if in the second situation you put another discharge, she moves again. If you do it all over, she moves. At the end, what she does is, as it is asked her to move, because whenever I go, I will suffer electricity. What she did is to stay still. Even if she experiences those discharges, she still stills. Even if you have already cancelled all the other currents in that space. So he said that is one of the mechanisms that can explain what happened in depression. You experience that whatever you do, things would be bad for you. But it can be real or it cannot be real. It can be learned. An example in the family. Today in breakfast we spoke about the influence of the family, of education. It is not only people who suffer from abuses or are neglected education. It is also how you have been taught to challenge the difficult situations. If your parents were very pessimistic or if they didn't reinforce you to look for solutions, you learn also that helplessness. Independently of what I do, I will fail. So you are very vulnerable to suffer depression. But as it is learned, you can also reprogram your mind. And in that, we're speaking not to psychologists but to priests, we can also help people to slow down, to sit, to think, and to find possible alternatives to manage the problematic situations. What is specifically the burnout syndrome? It is a professional illness that has been described mainly in the professions devoted to service to other people. Initially, it was described for medical doctors and teachers in school, but it has been also found that in other professions you can find it. Specifically, it has been in the recent 20 years studied in priests, because it is a profession in which you are giving yourself to God and to the people, and that needs a balance from your interior security and strength, and also for the feedback that you receive from the people, from the authority, from the bishop, and obviously also from God. What are the causal factors? Previous personality. We have spoken about the voluntaristic or the perfectionistic personality. The person that wants to be very right, very straight, that devotes himself to the others, who does not permit to himself to have a fault, to have a defect, who cannot say no because he has to serve the other people, and these personalities perhaps can be sustained when they have a great physical and psychological strength, when they're in their 20s, in their 30s, but little by little, when we grow up, those physical and mental strengths are a little reduced. So when time passes, you are more vulnerable to burn out. Attention so to these persuasive personalities when we are dealing with them in spiritual direction, in the seminary, in vocational pastoral, because there are risks. Attention also because these personalities are, there is a bias of selection in the church. When I do these talks to a lot of publics, institutions, in seminaries, they say, hey, I think that in my institution or in my house we have a lot of perfectionistic people. Is it that we are doing something wrong? Is it that we are picking these people? My answer is to say, I think it is normal, because in the Catholic Church we do have high standards of improvement. So it is very appealing for people with these perfectionistic personalities. But it is the same in the Catholic Church and in all its institutions, but also in Apple, in General Motors, in every business that want to improve continuously. So you have to have it in mind to balance that will of improving with the fact of recognizing, acknowledging that you have defects. I'm not sure if I have spoken about that, but I wrote a paper. Perhaps I can also upload it, translate it into English. I think that I have online translation. That is entitled "How to Accomplish the Command by the Lord: Be perfect as my Father is perfect, and not to become an OCD." So how can we do that? First of all, understanding what Jesus wants to tell us, be perfect as my Father, because it is impossible. So it is a metaphor, it is an exaggeration by the Lord. As in other difficult passages, you have to contrast it with parallel passages. If you go to, this is Mark, if you go to Luke, Luke says, not be perfect, but be merciful, as my Father is merciful. So you find here that what Jesus is telling us is not be impeccable, because it is impossible, and Jesus cannot ask us something which is impossible. He only can ask for us something that is according to our human nature, and we are a situation with the original sin. So be perfect as long as a human person can be perfect, which is necessary be a sinner. But the difference between that godly perfection and your humanly perfection can be filled with contrition and with humility. So part of being perfect is be humble when you realize that you don't arrive. Once I heard, and it helped me a lot, and also many people, that a disaster of day can be repaired when you go to the examination of conscience at the end of the night and you say to the Lord, my Lord, I love you more than what I have showed you with my works. And then you have accomplished what God is asking from you. We read a lot of times in the prophets and in the Psalms, mainly in that time, I don't want your works, your holocausts, your sacrifices, I want your heart. So if you have not offered during the day sacrifices to the Lord, at least at the end of the day offer Him your love. And God, who is a Father, will be happy with that. So service professions, it is more frequent in women than in men, perhaps because women have such a more tendency to insecurity, to give themselves, and so this is another trait that is very interesting. People who are insecure, who have low self-esteem, and choose a profession of service as a way of getting social recognition and getting congratulations from other people. So I remember an example, one woman who became a widow. He was really sad, and he was very low self-esteem, and then she went to a hospital, to a child hospital, and offered herself to work as a volunteer there, before with children with cancer, for example. Because she said, I can my children are old, and I think I can help them. In this case, the hospital used to do a test of personality to all the people who wanted to enter, because it is very hard for the people to relate with children with cancer. And they saw that she had a depressive personality, and they said, I'm sorry, but you are excluded from this work, because if you are not strong enough to sustain yourself, you won't be able to sustain other people. You will suffer, or you will establish relationships that are not really clear with each other. So it is better to you to find another way of doing volunteering. But it is studied and it is demonstrated that people who go even to priesthood are trying to get some kind of social recognition. And you have also to purify that intention. Obviously, it does not mean that that person has to be excluded from priesthood or from other ways of vocational life, but you have to make sure that he's able to overcome those desires. Otherwise, he can easily fall into burnout when he's looking for recognition, from affection, from feeling useful, and arrives a time in which priesthood or vocations do not receive a clear gratification. You are seeing and you don't get the fruit, or you don't get thanks from the people that receive your work. It is also related to time of dedication. That has to see more time, you get older, more time passes, you get also more rigid everywhere, in your neck, in your back, in your knees, but also in your temperament, in your character. So you lose all those instruments that we saw at the beginning of this course, in that slide of the room of the person who works in my house, that room full of tools. You forget to use more tools, and you go only with the ones with which you are more sure. Then time of dedication means that you see also that things are not so easy or not so beautiful as you understood at the beginning. That people, I think we spoke about that yesterday, people get married but then get divorced. You are trying to convert and to make people improve, but some of them do not want to improve, and they abandon the church. So, and that you have a kind of repetition of all the year, at least in the North Hemisphere. In September, we begin a year, and that year is very similar to the previous one. You have the same ceremonies, the first hot moments, Christmas, Holy Week, confirmations, first communions, and so, and you have to prepare the same thing to different people. Also with a feeling that people are worse every year. It is a sign that you are getting older. So don't worry, it is a normal thing. You see, now children are worse educated, Christians have less formation, people are more immature. It can be true, but probably it is only a sign that you're getting old. And then H, we said, so the feeling that has a person with burnout can be seen as the myth of Sisyphus. This person that was condemned by the God because of a sin that he did, he was condemned to take a big stone at the top of a mountain during all day, and the following morning the stone was again at the feet of the mountain, as he had again to do it. So that can be the mind of a person with burnout, that he says, this morning is still the same one as yesterday, the other one, and so. And it is also very, very exhausting, because this means that what I have done before is worthless. So what can we do for improving, so as to prevent or so as to get out of this situation personally, or to help people that we know who are in this situation? We can call it generically, we're going to also to speak about life of prayer, but from a human point of view, we can speak about mental hygiene. Mental hygiene means also time. When you wake up in the morning, usually you spend some time taking care of yourself and of your body. You take a shower, you shave yourself, you make your hair and all of that. And you can spend in that about 30 minutes, let us say. All of us have little time, and we wish we had more time. Imagine that a day would have, instead of 24 hours, that we had 25, 26, and so. It will be we might do a lot of good things with that extra time. So we have the temptation of taking time from our personal care, and we don't have the temptation to take time to this half an hour that we need, because we know that we need it so as to feel clean and to be presentable in front of the other people. But we can have the temptation to take time from our sleep time. We need to sleep about 7 hours every day. We need time for taking a break in the middle of the day. We need a time every week to disconnect with the pastoral work and to rest, to read, to do our work. We need time to physical exercise. So healthy lifestyle habits, which means to have a diet body with all the components that we need, also vegetables, and not only meat and fried friends. Time to maintain a weight, to do some exercise. It is very healthy to do some activity during the day, during the week, in which the body is put not in the limit, but at least that you force it a little bit. Remember that we are animals in our phylogenetic origin, and so we have been made, our bodies have been made to hunt, to run, and so on. The lifestyle now in Occidental world is very sedentaristic, and it is not healthy. So we have to look for ways of contrasting that by doing exercises, by going to the gym, if possible not to do exercise closed in a gym, but open in the mountain or some kind of sport. It helps a lot also to sleep. If you are very sedentary, if you spend all day sit down, it will be difficult for you that the body feels tired enough to get sleep. Also, to get sleep also requires that you slow down your activity little by little. Many people want to be absolutely active until the very moment of go to bed, and then enter into the bed and switch off, and I want to get asleep. Unfortunately, it is not possible. That is not as our brain works. Still worse is when, in order to get very active until late in the night, I take a lot of stimulants, coffee, tea, coke, and so, in order to make me awaken. So I cannot get sleep, and then what do? Take pills, natural pills as melatonin or sleeping pills that make little break your night-day cycle, and it makes you to wake up more tired in the morning. So I need more coffee. So I am still tired at midday, more coffee. So it is more difficult for me. So you can fall easily in a vicious cycle. So physical exercise, diaphragmatic breathing. It is a very easy mechanism of auto-relaxation. That means that when you feel anxious, just try and breathe deeply with your stomach. When you are a little anxious, you tend to breathe only with your thorax in a very superficial way, but if you breathe only superficially with your chest, you have the feeling of being more anxious. Instead, a big breath in your with your stomach, feeling well, it means that both your thorax and your abdomen feels the pressure because it is full of air, and there is a physiological mechanism by which when there is a greater pressure in the thorax, the heart slows down. So it is a way when you are very nervous, your heart begins beating more quickly, and it makes a sign to the brain saying something dangerous is happening. So the brain enters into anxiety. Instead, if you learn to slow down your heart through this diaphragmatic breathing, your brain understands things are calmed down. You can slow down, and so this is for you to manage even difficult situations. It can be done when you are in the confessional listening to a bored person, and then you are a little anxious. Slow down, breathe. When you are in a meeting that is a little tension because you are discussing difficulty, so breath, and it is very easy. And there are a lot of demos in YouTube, an example explaining how to do it. Taking care of the hours of sleep, and also taking care of the signs that your body or your mind gives you when you are tired. That is the, how do you say, when there is a tube broken and water is falling from the roof? Leak. A leak, yes. So my psychologist, the psychologist that treats me in the hospital, said that every one of us had her own leaks. Because if you have a problem in the roof, probably the water will not fall directly, but will look for the weakest way in the roof and fall perhaps in a way. So you open the roof in the leak and you see, no, it is normal. You have to look. The same happens with anxiety. It looks for our weaknesses, and perhaps you are anxious because you have an activity that is very demanding, but what you notice in your body or in your mind is that you have headache, or that you have stomach pain, or that you have diarrhea. So when you realize that those are your leaks, those are the weaknesses of your body or your mind, then it means that you have to check your schedule, your activities. Is something that is making me anxious? And then you go not to have to do exercises for relaxation of my neck, perhaps yes, but I have to manage in a different way my schedule. Let's speak about not only body, which is important, and you have also those somatizations are called when the anxiety is translated into physical symptoms, and let us speak about the cognitive style, which means the way in which we think. One typical characteristic of the perfectionistic person is the dichotomous thinking. Everything must be white or black. If I won't be able to do it perfectly, I won't try on. If I didn't get the top qualification, the top grade, then I have failed in this challenge that I try to do. So you have to learn to appreciate the scale of grace and to congratulate yourself when you didn't get the top, when everything was not perfect, but you did your best. To appreciate for you and also for the other people. It is very typical from the perfectionistic person, who will be our enemy in this talk, as you see, to be also very demanding to the other people. So it's very difficult to work with him, because he wants things to be done perfectly and in my way, not in your way. So he's like, they say, of a high personality in the old times in the church, that he didn't have collaborators, he only had executors. Do this in my way, do this as I told you. So the other people were very upset working with him, because they couldn't put to flourish their own talents. Do not look for results, but for processes. It is very delicate, and it has also to see with our vocation and the supernatural view. Not to try only to get people to do something, but to do good, to see, to do the best that I could do, or even a little worse than the best that I could do. But I want to establish processes. I want to do good, and God will do what He wants with the good that He has done. It has to see also with prayer. To keep praying, even if God does not give us the answer that we are asking Him, knowing by our faith that no one of our Hail Marys will be wasted. God will use them, but we have to trust Him that He will do it better than we want to do. So, for a good priest, for anybody who works in the church, he's supposed to seek to do good for the sake of good, not as a kind of instrumentalistic will. I want to do good and will so that you change, and then I get a reward. That is what makes people to fall, one of the mechanisms of falling into burnout. I want to get the reward. Obviously, we are not angels, and we need also some kind of human reward to see that we have organized a nice pilgrimage or a nice ceremony, the first communions, or we have invested our time to do pastoral vocations, and we have answers, and it is a very good thing. We understand what's necessary. But if I do that, I did my best, and I don't get results, perhaps I have to check if it is good to keep or not. But perhaps I have to keep seeing and doing well, and God knows how the results will come. Self-validation, self-congratulation. People very insecure need other people to congratulate them. People who are secure are able to say, I am going to celebrate because even if the results have not been very good, but I did my best, so I can be happy with myself, and still better, God is happy with me. Instead, there are people mainly because they have experienced that again in the family. They have learned that they needn't any validation, they don't deserve any validation unless they get the top. People whose parents were very demanding and said to him, I am proud of you only when they got the maximum, the results. And then a child usually assumes, internalize the validation that the parents used to give him. Parents who said, if you are not perfect, I am not going to tell you I am proud of you, will assume, will internalize that, and only will be proud of them when they get the top. I had an experience with an adolescent. I had been his spiritual director, and then we became only friends. He was a college student. He was in his third year of university, but still in his first year, because in the first year he has passed only one matter, which was the minimum so as not to be expelled from the university. In the second year he got only a couple matters, and in his third year he got to pass half of the matters in which he was. And then taking a beer with him in a bar, I said, well, congratulations, because you have improved. You have done 4 times better than in the last semesters. And he told me, no, you have not to congratulate me, because it has not any merit from me. How not? No, I didn't study. But I think that you didn't study the other 2 years. Now you have not studied enough, but you have studied. So he wanted all the time to boycott my attempts to congratulate him. And then I passed to attack, and I said, I'm afraid that you are like afraid of congratulating that, but if you do that, if you say, I am unhappy, it is worthless what I have done, then what will be your motivation to enter into the next semester and say, I'm going to do at least what I have done now, or even best. If you say this worthless, you won't be moved to push in that direction. So we took also a step back, and I asked him, what about your parents? And in fact, it was his parents that didn't appreciate absolutely those small steps. And he had learned it from his parents. And I also told him, be attentive, because if you don't realize of that, and if you don't change your mind, you will also be that kind of educator with your sons and daughters. So think about that and change your mind. Thank God he finished his grade after over, I think, 5 years. But anyway, he did, and now he's happily working. Get out of the tyranny of expectations. Very typical of young people who have to get what other people are expecting from him. My parents, if they are seminarians, the parishioners who send me here, or what the rector or what the formators are waiting for me, but also you can have it in other people. People who work because my parishioners, the bishop or the chief of the school or the headmaster of the institution in which I am working, and then they are mainly working out of duty. And you can do it, and it can be also a help for you to persevere in doing good. The problem is that working also only for responding to the expectations of other people at a midterm is exhausting. You have to work in order to do what you think that is the good thing, even if perhaps it is not completely according to the expectations of other people. It is more healthy. Obviously, you have also to educate your goals. It is not only I'm going to do what I want, you have also to educate that. But stop those expectations, because they are really exhausting. And then, as we said in the first talk that we had, to be able to recognize and to name emotions. People very perfectionistic usually have internalized that they have to work despite the emotions. And at least in my initial formation, I heard it lots of times. You have to pray even if you don't feel anything in your prayer. Otherwise, you are a sentimentalistic. You have to work and to do your duty even if you don't feel like doing that, but you have to do that. Otherwise, you are emotional. So, at a certain point, I realized that I had seen emotions as an obstacle, as something dangerous, both for my work and for my life of prayer, for relating to other people. You have to treat everybody and not only the people that you like, because in that case you are seeking yourself and not the good for the other people. But you cannot work against or back to your emotions. You have to integrate your emotions in your life, also educating your emotions. And even in that way, your act will be better or more human, because we are not only Aristotle and Aquinas, I hope will forgive me, are not only mind and soul. We are also feelings, and if you exclude feelings from your life and you work only by your mind, what I know that I have to do, the rules and so, or by the will, I have to push me out, and you forget that heart and feelings, then you are excluding a part of your humanity, and your act going to be so perfect from a human point of view. What about work? Work is the reason of burnout. Work that for us is the pastoral work, obviously. So how can we manage our job so as to not to get burned out in it? First of all, I would say enjoy what you do, what you have in your hands. That is, if you think it from a certain point, it is what you have been called to do, even if perhaps you didn't know that being a priest means also not only celebrating the sacraments and preaching, but also managing the office and listening to people, spending a lot of time listening to people, and it is also, it can be burdensome because not everybody is friendly, and there are some problems that fall into you. I remember it was from a psychologist, from a psychiatrist, but it can be also a message for a priest. A woman who did his session of psychotherapy, she went out very relieved, and she thought on the psychiatrist, that is a very nice thing, and she wrote to him, doctor, I have putting on you all my grief, all my problems, but please do not get them into you, but pass it to another place. I think that it is a problem that we can have in the office or in confessional, spiritual adoration, to listen a lot of problems and to finish a little pessimistic, because we cannot solve those problems, and we cannot help the people to solve the problems. But it is not what we can do. It is not our expertise. Our expertise is to help people to see what they are suffering from a supernatural point of view, so as to they can grow in holiness. So, as holiness is not something that you can do for you, part of our job is also praying for the people. When you know, I don't know what to do, you are telling me that you don't have a job, that your husband is abusing you, so I cannot do, I am getting your burden inside on me. So let us pray and trust God that will solve the problem. And let us also help people to know that God is expecting them to grow in holiness through those problems. not despite those problems. That means what virtues, moral and theological, can you put in action with your problems, so as to challenge the people. I remember it happens more or less frequently, but I remember specifically a case in confessional that came to me. A woman in her middle age came to me and began speaking about the sins of her husband for about 5 minutes more or less, a typical case, so impossible to know who it was because it is very frequent. And then after that she began speaking about the sins of her children, how they didn't obey, they didn't work in the school, they responded her so badly and so. And then when she was going to speak about the sins of her clients, I had to stop her also because we had a line. And how can you stop that person? And then I said, but what is God in these problems? Because she had not mentioned God. What is this? God is there in your life. So how are you going to take advantage of those problems so as to personally grow in the love of God and in the love of those people? With your husband, who is not very nice, with your children, who are in their adolescence and are selfishness, and how are you going to... So it is a way of putting on you the command, the drive of your life. You have to drive, you have to manage your own life according to God. And that is appealing also for us. I have to help people to improve. Another thing that has to be also with those personalities perfectionistic is to know that well, I always speak about that after the voice I don't arrive. Well, living in the present, not in my life, in my last golden ages, but in what I have now, not in what I am going to do after, in how I will be happy when I receive another task, another parish, another, living in what I have now. And add challenges in our task. There is a famous psychologist, I think he's already Hungarian, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi or something similar, impossible to pronounce. That speaks about flow. Flow, he says, is what you feel, that pressure sense feeling that you have when you are able to balance two characteristics: the challenge and your skills. There are tasks that require from you a lot of skills, and if you don't have them, but the challenge is great, you feel anxious. Instead, and perhaps that can be what happens as a lot of times, you have to do a lot of activities that require from you a little challenge, and you have a lot of skills. Organizing activities that are very monotonous, very without routine, and he says in those cases, so as not to fall into boredom, you have to add some challenge, something that makes you put your talents and make you flourish your personality in that. Not to do the most comfortable thing, which is to prepare things in the same way every year, but to put some novelty. Mainly, as we saw, I think it was yesterday, when you arrive to your 40s and then you are a little tired every year the same. So how I am going to complicate my life so as to do it in a different way that will be more appealing for me and probably also for the people who won't go to the same ceremony, the same procession, the same structure, camp, or wherever. Forget about the to-do list. That is very difficult for us. I like very much the psalm that says, if the Lord is not vigilant of your house, it is vain that people are on ward. If the Lord is not taking care of your stuff, it is absurd that you wake up early in the morning. So go to bed knowing that we can do what we can do, that they have also 25 hours and we have to sleep 7 or 8 of them, and abandon to the Lord the things that we cannot do. For some perfectionist personalities, I recommend them to have a great devotion to our Lord the Savior. He is the Savior, you are not the Savior of the people. And also, it makes you choose well your priorities and not to waste your time with things that are not so important. That famous Eisenhower matrix between things that are important and urgent. So you have to devote time to things that are not urgent but are important. If you waste most of your time in doing things that are urgent but not important, in answering the email, in paying the bills, in blah, 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 you don't do long-term activities that are the ones that you are really going to enjoy and that are really what the people need. As you will have always a great to-do list and a great number of emails or WhatsApps to answer, you have to learn to say no and to delegate. These are two very difficult tasks for the perfectionistic person. To say no is to acknowledge that you cannot, and also to do a bad role in front of the people, that you have to say, I'm sorry, but I cannot. But you cannot burden yourself continuously with stuff that would be very nice, that will help a lot of people, but you cannot put in risk your health.
There is a famous phrase, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah.
This is a famous phrase.
In fact, also there is a book about OCD personalities or perfectionistic, which title is When I Say No, I Feel Guilty. So he teaches you how you can, in a polite way, no, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, but I cannot say yes, because to do that I wish have to omit or to neglect things that or compromises that I already have. One way to reduce your task list and not to say no or not to let things without anybody to do that is to delegate, to have a team of people who is working with you that can do all that stuff which is urgent, that do not need a person specifically trained, or even they are trained in that because they can do the accountability, or they can organize some activities and so to be able to be surrounded by a big number of people doing different jobs also make you free to do what other people can't do, which is celebrating the sacraments, which is hearing confessions, which is being really integrated in the parish life, and not to spend a lot of time in things which are very human, very only organization. The problem is that the perfectionistic person feels very difficult to delegate, because he says, if I want things to be done in my way, and that is the error. So he prefers to do it, because if I tell other people to do that, he will do worse than me. And perhaps it can be real, but it is better that then they are done worse than if you do them, that if you overload yourself. And then it also falls into a vicious cycle. The person who burdens himself doing everything tends to accumulate more and more work. And as he does not spend time in training people to improve and to do things, people will not go to him. Or the opposite, he will go away from him, because you don't me to be myself doing things, you want me to be you acting that. I'm sorry, but I have other way of working. So it also requires some humility and trust the other people. This is a very good classic book to read for people who manages community activities and so, which is the Seven Habits by Stephen Covey. Very nice book. It is written for people who are CEOs in business, but also for a parish priest. It gives a lot of ideas. And one of the seventh habit, remember, that is sharpen your axe, which means slow down, take your time, don't spend too many time cutting with your axe the trees, because it arrives a time in which your axe does not cut anymore because it is not sharpened. So you have to stop, you have to sharpen it, and then it will work better, and you won't get so tired as you are working. Be attentive to the accumulated stress. When you realize that your effectivity is falling, that you are getting anxious, you are sleeping less, that your mood, your serenity is in danger. And sometimes it is good to have a change of occupancy. Last year there was a congress, 2024, a congress organized by the dicastery for the clergy about ongoing formation of the priests. In February there were 800 priests there. It was a very nice experience. People was very happy, and one of the things that many of the attendants, both the speakers and the public, said is how good it is to have a kind of sabbatical for priests, to be able to spend a few months out of the normal responsibilities, and how it will be good for dioceses to organize those activities in such a way that I can be in a house when I can celebrate my mass, and to have spiritual direction and some formation activities, as we are doing now. It is a kind of sabbatical week, so something organized by the dioceses. Many universities, for example, organizes small courses of a week, of a month, and so go there, you train yourself, you have the afternoon free to walk and to meet in that city, so it helps also to relax, like a kind of organized vacations. Attention also, because some people are not able to have vacations. Some of them out of guilt, because they say, I don't have a substitute in my parish, so if I go out, people, they say, won't have mass. They will have mass. They only will have to move half an hour to the nearest parish. So it is also some guilt for them, but it is necessary for them to have a healthy parish priest, a healthy pastor. So don't worry too much that they have a car and they move half an hour for a lot of issues, so they will have also to move on Sundays to go to mass. So that sense of I have to burden myself. About the vital rhythm, defend the inner peace and joy. This is important. When I have lost my peace, it means that something is wrong in the way I am dealing with my job. Yes, please.
You said there are two reasons for not taking vacations: out of guilt. What was the second one?
And the other one is that I don't know what to do with my free time. At first glance, it is nice in a priest that says, I have to be in my parish with my people, I have to pray, obviously you have to celebrate Mass every day. But then, you have also to be able to enjoy and to have your hobbies, and to read and to walk and to do sport. Obviously, perhaps one whole month or 3 weeks will be too much, but at least 1 week in which you slow down, because for surviving the morning of Mondays that usually is free for priests can be enough, but some more days are also necessary to disconnect with the everyday problems and to arrive again with strength. As lay people, at the end, we are not so different from lay people. They also need their holidays. So start for people who are very tired and are inside that need of Sisyphus. It can help them to start the day with something relaxing, with something that they like. not 2 hours, because we have also to take advantage of the golden hours, as some people say. But if it is hard for you to go to work, so think what is the activity that I like the more. So put it at the beginning of the day. What is what you like more? I like more organizing this stuff. I like more meeting people. So put it at the beginning. In such a way, it will be appealing for you to wake up in the morning and to arrive to work. A daily rest time. It is very easy for us in the Mediterranean culture, because we have the most important contribution to the Hispanic culture to the world is the word siesta. At the point that it does not need a translation. You have also the nap, but you also understand the siesta. You can sleep a siesta in the strict term, going to bed for half an hour, but at least to cut the day into two pieces. Here in the United States, I know because it is my second time here, but I was very surprised with the routine by many professionals, both in the university now in which I am in Washington DC, but also when I went for the first time to a hospital in Pittsburgh, taking lunch as you are working in the computer or when you are in a meeting, so as to take advantage also of that half an hour. That means that you are demanding your brain for 8-9 hours without a stop, and that is not human. Our brain cannot work like that. Then the brain is overloaded, and sometimes it arrives at night so tired that even it cannot sleep, or they don't rest as they are sleeping. So it is more natural to do a stop, and most of the time it is possible, so to be closed on your room or stuff or whatever, to can be not necessarily sleeping, but to read the news, or to watch a nice video, or a show, or to read a novel or something, so that your brain can slow down. And this is not only for us priests, but also for the people. Is very important. I remember one of my first patients in the hospital was a woman, married woman, mother of 2 kids, that was also burned out because of her schedule. He had a part-time job in the morning, so his husband had a full-time job. He went out early in the morning and he arrived in the afternoon. And what she used to do is to take the children to the house, and then to take them to the school. And as they were in the school, it was her time for work, and he picked them up from the school and take to the house. After that, the day was finished for her, because it was time for helping them with homework, and then prepare the bath for them, dinner, and put them in bed. So it was running all day for her. So when he came, he needed medication, but I recommended her also to have a break after lunch, at least half an hour. She said, no, but I cannot, because I have a lot of work. But if you don't do that, perhaps you are going to heal from this episode, but you will be very vulnerable to fall again. So you have to make this, and she did. She learned to do all the things that we have done, not to take so much responsibility, delegate, and so. And she told me, look, now that I have rested a little more, I'm more efficient with my job, with the job that I have chosen to do. But mainly, I am more affectionate to my children. I can smile them more easily. So encourage an unproductive rest. I remember a priest that I met a few years ago, and I asked him, how do you rest? And he told me, when I am at home, I don't have any other thing to do. I do small reparations in the house or in the parish, but do you sit down in the sofa at some point to listen to music, to read, to watch a TV show? No, nobody is wasting the time. So he was continually stimulated, and perhaps he was like addictive to cortisol, to adrenaline, to some. So learn to do unproductive rest. The rest in which you are not going to get an immediate reward. That's all. You'll be able to see that something has been done. But avoid a completely passive rest, which means opening the computer or switching out the TV. It can be necessary, it's a good thing, but if your only way of resting is that, probably you can improve, because a rest that makes you a little more active, for example reading, is more demanding than watching TV or watching a computer. So it can help you to rest, but also to grow humanly or spiritually. So not to choose out, but to integrate and to have different moments of resting according to how you feel at the moment. And we arrive at looking at your mind, looking at your feelings. I remember when I arrived to the United States, different country, great effort with the language, extra effort for the brain to listen, to speak, and so there are some times in which at 4 p.m. I was exhausted. I wanted to work because it was my duty, but it does not work. So what I am doing, I'm going to extra work with the computer. No, I'm going to close the computer and I'm going to open a nice novel in Spanish, because now it is what I need. After an hour, the brain did reset and I could still work. Or even someday I am even too tired for reading a novel in Spanish, so what I'm going to do is to put a nice movie at 4 p.m. It is not time to watch movies, but it is the best time that I have, and it is what I need. So trust also, know yourself, and trust also on your needs to give them the answer that they need. And convey serenity. If you are losing your temper, if you are overwhelmed, it is very difficult for you to smile, then it is a sign that you have to change the way in you are taking your activities. Relationships, we have spoken in other talks about the necessity of loving and feeling love, so to have relationships with your brother priest, with the people, resting, but if possible, resting accompanied by other people. It is good to go for a walk, but if you can go for a walk with other person, obviously you will rest better. Here we priests have a problem, which is that we have to when the other people have their rest on their holidays, which is in the weekends. It is our peak of work, so we have to rest when all the other people are working. And some people feel bad, feel guilty. People are in their offices and they are free, but so it can help you to agree with another priest to meet and to do that work, and so on. As we saw yesterday, speaking about friendship, intimacy, and vulnerability, you have also to open yourself to other people and to say, I want to rest with you, I want to share with you my intimacy. This is one of the risks of celibacy, that we are so done to live alone, to organize our activities, to manage our schedule, that we can, without realizing, become individualistic. I organize everything by myself. I prefer to live close, to be independent, not to share. We listen so much the problems of the people that we are going to be listeners and we don't share our problems. When I was studying in college, the chaplain of the residence in which I was living had the nice habit of meeting parish priests along the diocese. He was known to be very available to have once, twice a week a meal with priest, even if he didn't know him. And then his friends priest sometimes call him, why don't you call this priest that I think he's a little alone? So once he spoke to us about what happened to him in one of those meetings. He received the name, the contact of a parish priest that was supposed to be a little alone. So he called him, I am this one, I would like to have lunch with you, which day can we meet? So they agreed one day. They were having lunch, he thought first plate, very well, nice conversation, second dish, okay, and then when the dessert was beginning, the other priest began crying, and well, something was not so good as I thought. What is happening? He calmed down and he said, excuse me that I became emotional because this is my 25 anniversary of ordination, and I thought that I should celebrate it as I have done the 24 years previous. That is, preparing my meal and eating by myself alone. But when it happened that you called me by chance, we chose this day, I realized, and as we were having lunch together and having such a nice conversation and living brotherhood, I was thanking God for doing this present for my anniversary. So that's why I became emotional. So thank you very much, and then they became friends. This priest told us, and at the beginning, my first interpretation was, what a nice priest that was so detached of himself that he was able to celebrate himself, his anniversary with many people, and with a supernatural view and a presence of God and dialogue with God. After a few years, now as a priest and working in this stuff, I said, this priest was deeply wrong and he was suffering without any necessity. Because imagine if this priest at the end of the previous Mass, the previous Sunday, say to the community, share his happiness with them. Please pray for me because in 2-3 days I am going to celebrate my 25th anniversary, which is for me as important as with 25th anniversary when you are married. So what would happen? Probably that he would not have been able to eat enough because he would have had a lot of invitations for having lunch with parishioners. He wouldn't have to prepare his food, or the opposite, probably he would have food for a lot of days. So what happened to this priest? To close himself, to not to be able to share. So sometimes priests who feel alone is because they don't manage the relationship with the community. Pope Francis told a lot of times that the pastor has to be in front of the community to lead them, behind the community to look at them and to see that no one is lost, but also in the middle of the community so as to share with them, so as to know them, but also so as to they being known by them. So someone calls them the Bethania families that invite a priest, and sometimes there could be there a very nice friendship with the community. The families that adopt the priest as a member of the family. And there I put a challenge to those priests that are invited to lunch, to family, they are friends, he's part of the family. I say, okay, but you have a danger now, which is the clericalism. Being invited and being well treated and being served and so, that enters a little bit in contradiction with your spirit that you have to serve, not only to be served. So I said then, accept all the invitations I receive with one condition. I am going to help also in the kitchen. I I'm not to sit down on the table and let me to put in and out the plates. I'm going to wake up, I'm going to check the plate, I'm going to dirt my hands washing also the plate, because I am not invited here. If you say that I am a member of the family, husband, wife and children are also working, so it also helps us to prevent the chief of the tribe, the priest, as the one who goes there and everybody is around him. And also looking for friendships outside one's own environment. This is a nice conversation that I have had with some parish priest friends, that he says, I cannot be really friends of my parishioners because there is a great asymmetry. I have to show myself as the best part of me. I have also to smile. So it is difficult for me to share. It can be true, but I'm not sure. Perhaps we can speak about your experiences in that, if you can become friends of your parishioners. I think it is possible, but obviously there is an overlapping of roles. You are his priest, you are perhaps their confessor, and also their friends. So it requires to do a correct frame in the different situations. So what about life of piety? It begins, as I think everything, by divine filiation. When you are overloaded with work, to know that God is your Father, your lovely Father, not the demanding Father, the policeman Father, the Father who wants to exploit you. No, He's your Father. He's happy with you. He wants to take care of you, and He wants Him to take care of yourself. You have to sanctify your true life, not the life that you would like to have, the life without problems, the life without so much work. Look at the crucifix, look at Jesus in the cross, without feeling a victim. I like very much the phrase of San Jose Maria in his The Way of the Cross, in which he says, every crucified that I see is like telling me, what are your sufferings in front of me? Your little needles in front of my nails. So looking at this also helps us to see, well, I have my cross, but it is not such a big cross. Sharing the cross with Jesus. Giving an apostolic meaning to our mood, to our problems, to our tiredness, to see like a crowning of how much we have worked for the people. It is a good thing. It is like the medal that I receive, that when I have devoted all my day to the people of my community. Pope Francis, in one of his interviews, said that when he was a bishop, sometimes his examination of conscience, I think the examination of conscience is very important now in the plan of life, was saying to the Lord, look, I have not done today what you were asking to me, what I was supposed to do. I didn't do all my prayers, but I didn't do neither what I wanted to do, because I had a lot of demands from people that distracted me, perhaps I didn't organize myself. So please, let's take one thing from the other and be happy with me. So it was a prayer of a child of God that has the confidence, the trust with his Father to say, I'm sorry, I didn't, but I tried to do myself, perhaps I didn't do, but forgive me and I will try to do better tomorrow. Reorient the concept of holiness. It does not mean to be perfect, to be impeccable. It means to put love in what we are doing, and that is what God is expecting from us. And remember to encourage the unproductive prayer, in the same way as we have spoken about the unproductive rest. That means not to devote the time for the mental prayer in organizing activities, in preparing the homilies or the preaches, but to speak to God even without resolutions. The adoration from the Eucharist, the contemplation of the gospel, the things of the gospel, and so on. What about when mental illness strikes? We as priests are in a privileged position to detect the mental health problems of the people in spiritual direction, in the confessional, in conversations with the people, and also to know ourselves when we are perhaps falling in that sadness that is not anymore physiological but is pathological. Be attentive so those early symptoms that can be a change of character, people who used to be extroverted, that used to speak, used to enjoy, and now he feels like more introverted, less spontaneous. What is happening to him? Perhaps he's falling into that burnout. Insomnia is a very important symptom. That means that something is going wrong. Sadness, apathy, that means that you don't like to do what you usually like to do and enjoy. So I used to like to watch a football match or a movie, but now I don't feel like it. It is my favorite team that is playing, but I don't like to watch it. So it means there is a problem in your emotions. And hedonia, which means when you do the effort to watch that movie or that football match, but you don't enjoy it. Or cry. You get emotional and you cry very easily. The most specific symptom of depression is anhedonia, when you don't enjoy what you usually enjoyed. So to get out of depression, it helps a lot to have some family support. For us, we are part of the family of lay people, but mainly family of those priests that can have fallen into this situation. Devote time to them, treat them with affection, consider that they are, like Pope Francis has said in some occasion, the flesh of Christ, the people being sick. Make them to feel useful. That means perhaps they are too tired, but they need to do something, maybe if they are priests, according to their position. And so invite them to do things that are not very burdensome, but can make them feel that they still work for something. For example, invite them to hear confessions. It is not very demanding. They don't need to organize something. When you are in front of something with burnout, it is important to take out from them responsibilities. They asked me from a diocese about a priest. He was the pastor of 2 parishes, and there was a younger priest who was the vicar of both parishes. And they told me, what about if we change them, one as pastor, one as vicar from any of the dioceses? My recommendation that worked is better do the opposite, change and put as pastor the other one, even if he's younger, and him also as the vicar, because what burdens you is the responsibility to take decisions. A person, even if he's burnt out, can hear confessions, can celebrate several masses in the day, but struggling with the cellars, struggling with the organization, struggling with the pastoral council, and so is the role of the pastor. So he will be free and he will be able to remake his mind. You have to be with those people little managers to help them to organize their schedule. And sometimes you have even to organize his schedule for rest. I listened one very smart priest that when he knew that some of his friends were tired, instead of saying, look, I am going for a walk tomorrow for an excursion to the mountain, and so can you accompany me? So instead of saying you have to rest, he said, please make me a favor and come with me. So it was some kind of emotional trick to say, I'm going to help you, but I am not to ask you like that, but I am going to ask you to help me to rest. Show them affordable short-term goals. so that they can go little by little, step by step, show the empathy, attention to messages like, but you don't have reason to be so sad. Everybody will be happy in your situation. You have no problem. You have a good parish. You have a good situation, a good family. But so we receive other people if you don't understand me or I am stupid. Because if everybody could be happy in my situation, so I am stupid, feeling bad. It is not something that is under his control. And also give them hope, because hope has the illness. When you overcome it, and you can overcome mental illness, also makes you more sensitive to the problems of other people. A person who has suffered this kind of problems is it's easier for him to be empathetic with people who suffer those illnesses. So thank you very much, and we have about 10 more minutes for questions and answers or for commentaries.
So you're in DC. Are you familiar with the work of Monsignor Stephen Rossetti?
Yes.
Yeah. So he's gone around many of the dioceses in the United States for almost 2 decades now. He's a psychologist.
Yes.
And has done these surveys where the priests self-report on these.
I have just read his book, Why Priests Are Happy, and I wrote him, and he was very nice with me, and he devoted to me an online meeting because he didn't go to the DC during this month. Anyway, speaking about that book with one priest, he told me, be attentive because that book is challenging also, because some people have this. I enjoyed it very much because it is also very supernatural, and he speaks about how all the things that we have said statistically works. Be with people, pray, do recollection, devotion to Mary, and so on. But this priest told me there is also a message that can be wrongly understood, that is, if you are a priest, you must be happy. So you have to show yourself as a happy priest, and it is artificial. It means that when you go out from your house and you show to the parishioners, you have to be always smiling and so. I said, well, I understand that, but don't hide your humanity. And sometimes you can begin by saying, excuse me, but I didn't sleep well tonight, but I have a headache. Still more, open your intimacy. Please pray for my mother because she's still. Pray for my father who has just died. So I share with you some of my problems, and then you can also accompany me in dealing with those problems, and see that I am also human. I have also my problems and my struggles. Also, about that, I heard from a young priest that came to study to Rome with us. It was very nice, his story. All the promotion, it was a big promotion of priests, about 15, 20 priests, and the bishop used to organize activities obligatory for all of them during the first years. But the priest didn't like that because it has been delegated to an organization who worked a lot with psychological issues, and they wanted them to share their problems, their challenges, and so. But all of them wanted to be closed. They didn't want to share neither with the other members of the promotion. Until he told me, in the first 6 months, 2 of the priests abandoned the ministry, and all the other 18 entered into anxiety. And then they said, we are going to speak about their anxiety. And then all of them saw how many of their struggles, the struggles that finished by blocking the ministry of those brothers, they were shared by the other people. And then they did a kind of community, even sharing problems little by little, more personal. And he said, it helped us a lot to sustain ourselves. And also to know that when I have a problem, I can speak to these 2 guys that have been able to overcome that problem. I don't need to go to the official spiritual director or the psychologist or so, but only a friend as we are drinking a coffee or a beer can tell me about his experience. And obviously the promotion gathered and made stronger.
Sometimes, or quite often actually, I find people's spiritual problems or struggles are rooted in emotional hurts that they had maybe as children. You know, like I'm thinking of somebody I know who was a practicing Catholic for many years. Then he encountered some serious problems in his marriage, his health, his finances. He said he prayed and prayed and prayed to God for help and guidance, and he said it seemed like God was silent, wasn't answering his prayers. So he decided, he said, I've had enough with this God thing. God doesn't exist. And he's now a really staunch atheist, you know. But in talking a little bit more with him, I found out that when he was young, his mother left them when he was 3 years old, and still doesn't really want to have anything to do with him, even though he's in his 40s now. And his father left him at home alone a lot, like at the ages of 9, 10, and 11. Sometimes he'd be at home alone, there'd be nothing in the fridge, he's all by himself, you know. So he experienced abandonment as a child that wounded him, and now he's feeling abandoned by God, you know. And so it's kind of like, wow, I don't know what to do to help him, because this spiritual problem is rooted in an emotional problem he had as a child.
Yes.
I don't know, like what?
Yes, many of the big problems that we have in our adulthood have its roots in our early experiences as children. That's why the New Ratio recommends that the seminarians have conversations about their biography, family life, early experiences, and so with the formators. It can be also be said with the people that we accompany, with the people, with people in marriage and so on. And also we tend to repeat the relationships that we have in our early experiences, now in our adulthood. And maybe the relationship, good or bad, that we have with our parents, and maybe with our father, with God. Because God is older than my father, much more. But I first knew my father at a certain point that I don't remember. Someone told me, God is the Father. And then the memories that it awakened in me, I don't remember them, but probably it was he is like my father, perhaps a little better, but the starting point or the reference is my father. If the figure of the father is has a wound, then the person can also have problems with his father. In some cases, it can help him to have a kind of help, external and professional help. Now we have spoken about this in breakfast. It is easier perhaps than 20 years ago, because now you needn't call it a psychotherapy. Perhaps you can call it a coaching or a counseling or something that is more neutral, not so much looking for pathology, but for normal wounds that you have. These people that didn't feel appreciated in their early ages have a black hole in their feelings, a hole that is very difficult to fill, both humanly and spiritually. And then they are looking for affection, for care, for validation, and as the hole is so big, it is a problem in the structure, then it cannot be filled. It is like a building that you find that the cement or the steel was not good when the building was built. So you can do the two things: either destroy the building, that usually you cannot do that, or to reinforce the basements. And to reinforce the basements, usually you need more than a priest or a spiritual director. You need a professional, good professional with a Christian view that can help him to reconcile with himself, with his father, with his parental figures, and then he can have healthy relationships in his adulthood.
Okay, yeah.
In that instance, I think he needs to investigate what his father's father was like. And there, you want to show to this person who feels abandoned that perhaps his father never learned from his father how to be a good father, and that this is not the will of God the Father. And so it's not as though he deserved it. Sometimes people feel as though they deserve this abandonment. And so, this fellow has to be reaffirmed that he's a child of God, and God was not pleased by how he was abandoned when he was young. He's got to learn to forgive his father, even as his father hasn't asked him to forgive him, because his father perhaps doesn't know enough about how he's hurt his son to ask his forgiveness. But only with the relationship with God the Father can this be healed. It's a lot of problems are father problems in our society, especially problems with God. So there has to be a reaffirmation of our Father's love for us, and how He is perfect love, and sometimes worldly fathers who are called to reflect that love don't do a good job at it, and hence, these problems.
Yeah, I agree completely.
I have two questions that are very related. One is, you mentioned about how we need like 7 hours of sleep or 8, and you talked about the need for unproductive rest. And obviously every person's going to be different. But is there like a general recommendation of a balance of time per day on type of activity, like 8 hours of sleep, 1 hour of unproductive, whatever? Like, do you have any guidelines on that? And the other connection that's related is, the problem that I most experience is that the sheer volume of inputs and demands of pastoral life does not always make it possible for me, at least in my own experience, to get this amount of unproductive rest that I'd like. People are coming in with big problems, they seem urgent, and it's kind of like I can't say no. I can't say, oh, sorry, we won't do a funeral, or sorry, like, I know you have a problem, but I know it's important to you, but I need some unproductive rest because I've just helped 3 other people with problems. It's just the volume. I mean, I know others have bigger parishes than I have about 2,000 families, so it's like, it's medium level size, right? Some have like way more. And it's just the volume is really hard, and they reach out, and the more you help them, they say to someone else, hey, Father Greg really helped me, so can I talk to you? And so the problem is, okay, first off is, is there a balance you recommend? And secondly, how do we handle what is sometimes very hard to do in trying to make the balance real?
Okay, so the balance, I couldn't say you the number of hours that you have to devote to any one of the activities, because it depends on you, on your habits, and on the different periods along your life. Usually, as you get older, you need to sleep less, but to take more rest during the day. Small rest at least. I think that the real challenge is to be detached with that rest when something really important arrives to you, for example a funeral or an anointment for an ill person. On Monday morning, which is your free morning, usually you have to celebrate the funerals of the people who died on Saturday and Sunday. So when you have programmed your excursion, you have to say, I'm sorry, but I have to celebrate two funerals. You can also manage the schedule. Example, you can celebrate the funeral at 11 o'clock, and then your morning is out, or you can celebrate the funeral at 2 p.m. Explain them. It will be easy for you because then you won't have to lose or make the people to lose their morning of work and so, and then you have at least 3 hours in the morning to do your stuff instead of sacrificing yourself. So sometimes it is also some flexibility to manage and to negotiate with the people. Also, at least it helped me a lot to contrast my life with the life of my married brothers, because then I see that they cannot say a morning in the week, bye bye, my wife and my children, I'm going out the house. they have to be all the time and maybe in the weekends with their children. But then they usually look for moments in which, even if they are with the family, they can slow down and rest. Otherwise, they get also burned out, both of the job and also of the family. And sometimes we have to renounce and to go to the Lord and say, this week and for another time I have to lose my morning of resting. And then put on you the thermometer to say, am I okay? Can I jump my morning of rest in this week? Or perhaps I have to be flexible with myself and say, I couldn't have the free morning on Monday, so I'm so tired that on Thursday I'm going to say, I close the office, I say to the secretary, if there is something urgent, only if there is something urgent, call me to my cell phone, I'm going to for a walk. And then you also manage yourself and you take care of yourself, which is important, both for you and also for your community. I think we have a last question for leaving.
Now we take a break now.
We'll take a break.
We need to take a break.
Okay, yes. Okay, so we finished and I can answer your question.